Hi, welcome. This is going to be my attempt at explaining, or at least trying to help you understand my thinking or logic behind the Odyssey playlist and the subsequent minor Arcana playlist that I've put together because there's about like 9 layers, 9 levels of, interpretation or intention behind most of the videos and how they correspond to each other and correspond to the tarot and correspond to mythology and creation myths or creation and evolution and historical events and archetypal events and events that have happened in my life, which has given me the inspiration to create this sort of collection. Understanding kind of evolved naturally and over time, and I don't know if I'm done still. There might be change-ups in videos and placements and all that still, but as I just try to find the best mixture of videos, imagery, symbolism, representation, all of it. So, but for the most part, I think it's probably going to stay the same, and they're all a little bit different than what the typical, or the videos that I've chosen are all different from the typical meanings usually that assign to the tarot. Everything I'd say is like a cross reading, cross mixture of all the different things that I've just mentioned. And so not every single tarot card is completely represented. Not every, obviously, historical event or archetypal stage in history is documented here, or, creation too. I try to find the middle ground where things could kind of overlap and mix, where you could find similarities between different events, between mythology, between a tarot card, between a time period in history, and also so that it could be looked at different ways from different perspectives. I tend to think of things as like one big loop and how it eventually forms a tunnel. If you kind of keep going this swirl tunnel, where there is some overlaps and similar happenings, similar events that take place, but how they're always going to be different based on the time period. So just to get you to think more in terms of what could be, what this may be implying, or how it applies, how it makes sense. Some videos, like I have Sia's The Greatest, and number 8, and that refers to the Strength card in tarot. And I also have mentioned, I think, in a few videos, and a lot of these videos that I've posted mention like how a little bit about this playlist and what some of the meanings are, reasons I picked certain things, or how to look at it, but I don't want to dictate exactly like how to look at everything. I want it to be open to interpretation, just so long as you understand, my thinking behind it, because a lot of it is very personal, so I don't want there to be complete like misunderstanding, or it just doesn't make sense, or you're just like, whatever, it's just a playlist. Like, there's a lot of thought that goes on, that went on into creating it, and there's, like I said, about 9 layers of meaning, and they are all interconnected, and it's interesting to look at from all different ways, and it kind of brings unites a lot of ideas and different time periods and different theologies and different belief systems. So there's a lot of thought that went into it, and so I hope that people can see that and appreciate it. But just going back to the Sia's The Greatest, and the Strength card, which talks about greatness, power, all of that, health, because there's lots of little kids in that video. I kind of thought of it as, and it'll make more sense as I kind of go through. I don't know if I'm going to do every single placement or every single video. I might just do like 1 through a certain number, or just pick out what I think are the most important parts of the playlist, or things to take note of that make the most sense, so then you can look at it and figure it out for yourself. But within that video, I kind of, in the time period, I either thought of it as, because it's right before a flood, which is represented by formation, Beyonce's Formation, and not every it's not that literal usually here. Actually, for the first time in my life, like, not everything's literal. Whereas Beyonce and all the ladies are like the water and they're filling up the swimming pools. It's a flood. And so between Sia's the Greatest and Beyonce's Formation is kind of this thought that maybe, between different events like that have to do with floods, the Great Flood, Noah's Ark, Ice Age, all these things that kind of repeat in history, just being represented at different time periods in different ways, and how maybe there's always someone within different generations that is trying to get people to get up, wake up, and to survive. I thought of Sia's as survival of the fittest sometimes, and or Noah's Ark, 'cause they're all in cages, or just how a species died out, and then there's like Ice Age, and then the great, even Noah's Ark, a species died out, and some were saved in the flood. So just trying to find the common threads throughout is basically the way to go about this, and just kind of see that not every video is, again, literal, and that sometimes the people are the I want to say like the force of nature, or the event themselves, or you know what I mean. So it's not always, again, as literal, and they all do sort of have personal meaning for me. Sia's video, especially because I had a fall, a blackout, a really, like, I think maybe a stroke or something, where I think I died for a second. Not to get too heavy with this, but just so that you understand, and it was in my kitchen, and I just was like struck down, and I woke back up, thankfully. But in that video, unless you really watch it closely, you might miss, but towards the end, they all fall. The entire species, I want to say, like hominids, like, just kind of all crash down. It's over. They couldn't survive, that kind of thing. But she wakes back up, the main girl, whatever her name is, and they are in a warehouse type setting that looks like my old apartment when I had especially with a party that I had. It had all these like little poke through lights coming through, and I had my fall in my kitchen. And that's where they are. You can see the kitchen in the background, and it looks kind of a lot, almost exactly like the kitchen's appliances and setup that I had. It was weird. And she's like crying rainbow tears and everything that I've done throughout this entire last few months at least, but also like every project, my data graphs, everything has been based around the rainbow spectrum and light, and seen with new perspective and seen through a filter of light and rain, just colorful vibrancy and all that. So rainbows have been a big theme, spectrum, seeing the other side of the rainbow, getting to the other side of the rainbow, going home. All these references mixed and merged to create something that has been a consistent theme or concept for me over the past few months to last year or so. And she's crying rainbow tears in that because I guess she couldn't save people. So again, within this whole thing, I'm going to try to explain my perspective and my dissection of the different videos and how they apply to the timeline, but the timeline is flexible, and I tried to make it so you could go both ways, like the Wheel of Fortune and Tarot that spins both ways. It's the world that comes full circle and that starts over, it's infinity, and just to show a more unconventional route or outside the box perspective, and also going forward from 0 to 1, or 1 to 29, to show a more conventional route. And it does go to 29 because my moon sign is in Taurus at 29 degrees, so I did it so it's like the moon around the world, circling the world in 29 stages, and everything does have like a stage kind of set up, or some sort of fake, not unreal scenery. It's or like a stage, like I said. So there's a lot of consistency. There's a lot of parallels and things that you can see throughout the entire thing. And as far as timelines go, a lot is made up by numbers, going with numerology and also the tarot and centuries and things like that. So you can kind of pay attention to numbers. Something like 25 adds up to be a 7, and 7 is the Chariot. So you can see if things cross-reference for you. Just so you know what the markers are also, since it is a bit unconventional imagery and all that, to let you know which are important markers, so you can kind of find your way through. But also that, timelines are different, and they can kind of mix and merge and go this way and that way, just depending on how you go, Number 12 talks about going back to the start, so you go all the way back to the start. Since I can set things up with a 0, and there is a 0 in tarot, which is the Fool's, the soul, universe, you. Since there is no 0, I kind of had to work around that and combine a few archetypal stages, people, personas, cards, historical events, all that, and kind of, merge them, so a little work around that. So again, I just wanted to make sure everything was clear for people. And that's understood. Let's see if there's anything else. There's a ton else. I don't even really know where to start, and I'd like to set this up so you can see the screen and also see the card. I'm not really sure how to do that. I know it's just some sort of, probably very simple for most people that know how to do computer things like that. But we'll see how that gets worked out. But in the meantime, you might want to familiarize yourself with that, and also look at the minor arcana. I have them set up by the different suits: fire, air, earth, and water. So cups, swords, pentacles, discs, and wands. And just to kind of show the progression also from the ace to the 10, and how most of those I think are a little bit more traditionally connected to the tarot. I didn't, go on all these different timelines in that sense, but you could think of it like that, different timelines that correspond to the Odyssey playlist. And you can see some of the same artists and musicians that are in the minor arcana, also in the Odyssey and the major arcana, to further emphasize this kind of point of multiplicity and repeating and perhaps reincarnation or past lives, just trying to merge all these different theologies, doctrines, belief systems, theories, all of it. You can kind of think of it as like a video game also, and the different players as the musicians and how they show up throughout. For an example, the King of Cups, in the lyrics for that video, it says, "She looks like the moon," probably referring to the Queen of Cups, his counterpart, who is, it's a song by Adele, "Rolling in the Deep," talking about, being able to dive deep. Queen of Cups would be able to do that. She's very psychic, very emotional, handles emotions well, and she looks like the moon. So, and Adele is also, one of her songs is in the placement of the moon. So those kind of fun connections, she looks like the moon. It's like the same sort of, and just kind of, again, further emphasizing the point that we all came from somewhere, and that there is no, to not think of things so compartmentalized in a way, not so boxed in, gender, race, all that, religions, just trying to find our commonalities and how anything is possible. The fact that anyone would think otherwise is beyond me, because we're such a young species, and we're so, most people don't even know that much about spirituality, religion, theology, history. So, and I'm not saying I'm an expert either, but these are just my sort of opinions and things that I've naturally come to, and sometimes just throughout this development process, things come to light, and our new thoughts, new ideas on how things came to be that I wouldn't have seen otherwise without developing this Odyssey playlist, this timeline. And so again, there's just a ton of themes that you can see throughout. And I did do a video. Maybe I'll try to link it or something, but it's like the 2-hour-long video that you can probably find easily. It talks a little bit more about the concepts and themes that I've worked with over the years and how they play out in this playlist, and taking on different contexts, different meanings, and also seen in the music videos, and how it's somehow, like, I feel like it's some sort of divine thing, because I never watched music videos before this. Like, if someone ever asked me, you know, or if I thought of a song, like, you think the way that you think of a song, you know, it's like maybe you remember a couple different lyrics, lines, unless it's like your favorite song, you know, but I definitely never saw most of the music videos, things like that, and how they worked out perfectly for this, and how, not just for myself to reflect my own experiences, my own projects and themes, but how they work together and tell their own stories, and repeat some of these concepts that I've carried throughout the years, and that apply in a very personal way also. But like the cars that you can see, nearly every video has a car in it, talking about transport, talking about movement, talking about communication, talking about movement forward, progression, like Apollo or Prometheus, that brings, you know, light and education and things like that to others. But it's basically just the movement, the car, the chariot, moving you forward. But usually there's also this idea of a fall, you know, either the fall in creation or just a fall, but a fall that leads to some sort of enlightenment. And I don't take it as seriously as like creation myths do. I think, you know, it's more like a, hey, let's go, let's do this kind of thing, and jump in. And that was then taken to be more of like a fall, like a very serious, like, fall from grace, you know, kind of thing, whereas there's just a ton of different ways of looking at it. And so some sort of fall crash, like I said, crashing my kitchen, that led to a different way of looking at things for myself, but enlightenment in general. Enlightenment or progression, some sort of new stage, new way of being, something like that. And in a lot of videos there are crashes, there are falls, so you can kind of you can look into that and follow those similar themes. I personally, like, my parents were in a car crash when my mom was just pregnant with me. She's even said, like, I'm surprised you survived my pregnancy. Like, I'm surprised that you're alive, kind of thing. So, and talking about myself also having a fall. So, almost like maybe perhaps like dying twice kind of thing, which has been a consistent thing throughout the last few months too. Double eights, dying twice, or some sort of metaphoric dying. But everything is a metaphor in this playlist. Everything is a metaphor, to take everything, to be able to see things with different eyes, different perspectives, different contexts, and how they all could potentially work together and tell new stories and bring us all together and bring different belief systems together. And just, I mean, it might sound lofty, but when you really get into this, it's very complex and very interconnected, and it's amazing. I don't even know how I did it, how this all worked out, and how, you know, videos even from 20 years ago or something, perfectly leading up to now, and being perfect timing with events and things that are happening now. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that yes, it is talking about the past and the cycle that, you know, that we go through in evolution and progression, but since it is related to the tarot, and once you know which, you know, videos relate exactly to which tarot cards, it's pretty much the same, just with the exception of the zero, and, you know, but so since it is related to the tarot, and the tarot is meant to predict, or, you know, divination, the future. So while it talks about the past, it also gives an insight, perhaps glimpse into the future for you, and in a very kind of tongue-in-cheek way, you can like put it on shuffle, and, you know, shuffle your cards and shuffle the videos, and see what comes through for you. Because I tend to think that, and this is my own idea, I don't know if anyone else has thought of this, but like, that behind the veil is actually behind the screen, the computer screen. That is a way of communication with, you know, the outer universe, sphere, God, just because, I mean, why not? You know, like, it seems like the most easy way of communicating, especially if there's communication through like wavelengths and stuff like that. That is a very scientific way of looking at things, so it just makes more sense in a way and very like easy. So to get more people to understand that, yeah, putting something in a shuffle and seeing what comes up is kind of maybe sounds silly to some, but for me it's been extremely synchronistic and worked out, and describes exactly what I'm doing at the time, and I have picked out all these videos very intentionally, so hoping that that translates over to you as well, and that people begin to see that by kind of, yeah, trusting in those kinds of things, or at least opening your mind to help coming through these kind of channels and modes of communication, that it's possible. And there was something else I wanted to say. What was it? 29 degrees. And, yeah, just come and see what stands out to you, what works for you, and usually, you know, I put music videos for that purpose. You know, lyrics. Maybe it's a song title. Maybe it's the imagery, the scene, the meaning that it's related to, or the time and place, or the person in it, or just whatever stands out to you, whatever strikes a chord with you, is potentially your answer, help point you in the right direction. There's also a lot of, because this has evolved a lot over time, some of the videos that I had initially that maybe explain this theory further, because they weren't all music videos to begin with. Some of them were like interviews and just other YouTube things, information I found on, you know, online, that are pretty short. I'll probably put some below in that video so that you can read or watch those. One specifically that's based out of Norse mythology and talks about how the universe was created, and that explains a lot about why I chose like the Daft Punk video or the Smashing Pumpkins video, and how the people in the clouds and sound and all of that. And so I'll put that below. And and so then after 21, 0 to 21, like the major arcana, I added to that to make 29, to make it my own, and try to think of it in terms of like what would happen after some major shift in humanity in our day and age, or just some sort of completion to, you know, maybe even an enlightenment, finally finding out like something, you know, like some sort of conclusion, ending of the world, whatever the world means to you in tarot, but it talks about a conclusion, completion of an adventure, journey of something. And so I wanted to think about how, like, what would come between that, like, middle point between the end of something and the beginning, the zero of something else. All these things, like maybe there'd be an interview, like how'd it go, you know? And there's an interview from the 1960s with Edie Sedgwick and Andy Warhol, and that talks about the reflection of the moon. And so, again, many, many layers, like in terms of art, perspectives, advertising, what would my own sort of idea of what would happen after the end of the world or something like that. Like, yeah, like, how did it go? What would you change? What would you do next? You know, or just a recap or understanding, or just, you know, a Hunger Games kind of thing, or, you know, just however it works out for you. But there's just like a lot of different things. And after that, I kind of thought like the theory of everything would come about, and everyone would understand everything. And then, you know, it just kind of works its way up to my play, which is at the end. And again, you can kind of take, I could be the Fool, you know, or the Fool could be number one, however you interpret it. It does different things if you think of it in different ways. You start at different places. So where do you want to start? Where do you want to begin? Where does your journey begin? You know, knowing the major arcana helps and the base symbolism, but you can always like look that up, and most of them correspond to the numbers, like as much as I could possibly get them to. But yeah, it's all about meeting halfway. It's all about merging opposites. It's all about finding that middle ground, the in-between, the space between time, place, people, universe, race, religions, all of it. It's the happy medium, with a lot of potential perspectives and timelines and things that hopefully speak to you on some level. And so just to stay open-minded with it and work with it and see, it's one of those things that you go back every time, and each video I find something new, or something new stands out to me, or something I never noticed before, detail. As I say, it's all in the details, whether it's even the date that the video was published sometimes corresponds exactly with the placement that it was at, or it's an answer, a clue for you, a sign for you, the imagery, all of it. It's all in the details and how they correspond also to the readings that I've done the last few months, and just progression in general, cyclical nature of things. So anyways, I hope that you like it, and I'll be back with more in-depth look into some of the videos and the meanings and things, working maybe my way through it, but we'll see. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking a look at that and taking some time with it, and I hope that it's helpful for you, especially if I can't be here to do readings and all that. Hopefully you'll be able to utilize that on the go, whenever, wherever. So thanks again, and I'll be back. Bye.